and welcome to this absolutely serious annual event of Bookroast Book Awards. Yeah. By the way, hope you're good. In all seriousness, this is just a video where I basically tell you what book was the best out of the ones that I read that year. I have 10 categories and I have made this video in 2016 and 17. I'll link these down below if you fancy a watch, but I am very excited. I will also be filming a worst books I've read in 2018 video for those who like very mild tea. So keep an eye out for that one, but we'll start on a positive note. No, these are not necessarily the books that are released in 2018. It's just out of the books that I have read in 2018. At this particular moment, which December is not over yet, so something might pump some other book in the categories here, although it's not likely because, you know, these are pretty strong choices, but if I do read something really brilliant throughout the rest of the month, I will just add these into the next year to compete. At the moment, I have read 81 books this year, which is a lot. That's on Goodreads, so I have not done my split yet of how many books and how many like graphic novels and mangas, because I know some people don't really count these. That's another discussion. Let's get into the categories. So first category is the best emotional read of 2018. And that one actually is We Are the Ants. I believe I gave this 4 stars. This is by Sean David Hutchinson. I am way more emotional when it comes to movies for some reason. I think it's the audio with the visual that really gets me, you know, like paired together. I'm fairly level-headed when it comes to the books, so this is a hard category for me every year to fill, but out of the books that I read, this was definitely one of the more emotionally touching ones this year. This is a book about a guy who believes he is constantly taken by the aliens and they let him decide or force him to decide whether or not he wants to press a button to destroy all of the earth or he believes in humanity enough to save it. He's at the point where he's not sure whether humanity deserves to be saved or not. And this was a very emotional read. A lot of the stuff was emotional because of the family situation, for me at least. It's a very unique book that I really enjoyed thoroughly. It reads really simply, however, keep in mind that this should have a trigger warning for suicidal thoughts. But if you're looking for something to make you a little bit emotional, I would recommend this. Next up, we have the most unique book of 2018, and for this one, we have Dark Matter. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch was one of my absolute favorite reads of 2018. If you followed me at the start of the year, I have raved about this for months and months after I read it. I still think this was such a journey. I could not put it down. It was one of those that you just start reading and just can't put down. Although I do know that some people really didn't really care about it at all, but for me personally, this was a very unique read. I'm not saying that the concept of what this book deals with is new at all, but it was new to me in the book world. And this is basically a psychological thriller, I want to say. This is about a guy who gets kidnapped out of his life and then basically risks everything, his life and people's lives around him, to go back into his life. I know this is very vague, but I don't want to even say what theme this has, but I will say that it is a sci-fi. I just don't want to reveal anything because as a thriller, you obviously don't want to know too much, but it really it grabbed me from the very first chapter. The writing style was so easy to read. The pacing of this was insane. And I think the way they approached the subject or the main theme in the sci-fi was unique to me. And I just really enjoyed it. Still recommend this 100% for anyone who is looking for a good ride. This was actually also a very sad read at some parts. It was very hard to imagine to have to deal with, so definitely another emotional read actually, but this definitely won the unique book of the year for me. Then we have a category that is called the most fangirl worthy of 2018, and this simply means that it's a book that had so much going on, that was so engrossing that you want merch for it, you know? So it doesn't necessarily have to be the best masterpiece, but it just has to be so gripping. Although in this case, I do have to say, to me, it was a masterpiece because I really love this book. This is a second book in the duology. However, the first one was just alright to me, but the second one was so good. I am talking about Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. The whole series evolves around these cast out gang members that just that get into a highest job. However, it obviously goes all wrong and they get tangled up in businesses that are very, very dangerous. However, the leader of the gang does not like to be cheated. Also, the whole thing is very much about pride and proving yourself to no one in particular, but more yourself, and being tough, but the toughness coming from insecurities and trauma. This was so good. I just love it so much. I highly recommend this series. This series made me fall in love with Leigh Bardugo's writing. I was very much not a fan of the Shadow and Bone book. I didn't even continue with the series, but this is everything. I love it. I love it. If Leigh Bardugo released 5 chapters about these characters having breakfast together, I'd read it. It's that kind of book, you know? Now, the funniest book of 2018 was actually a book called This Is Going to Hurt. It was an audiobook. Definitely recommend an audiobook. It was this I think the actual author read it. I think this was very much a UK read because it talks about NHS and problems within NHS and his experience, because this is a person who used to be a surgeon but quit. I do think it probably adds a lot of humor if you're familiar with NHS. However, I don't think that it's necessary for you to know a lot because it's still, you know, it's humor. I think overall anyone can listen to this or read it and find it pretty hilarious. It's a very dark humor because obviously it deals with a lot of unfortunate stuff. I will definitely say trigger warning for illnesses and death and cancer. Me being a person that gets triggered by these, I would definitely put a trigger warning on this. However, it was light enough to sort of carry it, and it did get a little bit uncomfortable and I would just stop listening and then come back to it later. But I listened to it very quickly because I couldn't stop. It was very entertaining to listen to this. I really appreciated the humor of it, and sometimes these topics need to be made lighter in my head so I don't get lost in a spiral of my thoughts of being afraid of every single thing that could go wrong with my body. My own mortality is something that I really just don't like to think about. The next category is the best cover design of 2018, and obviously my opinion. All of these are my opinions. I like this category because it gives me a chance to mention the books that would not necessarily win any other category because they were not necessarily 5-star books. And I think last year what actually was the same book that won the best overall, but this year is a book that I think I rated 2 or 3 stars. Empress of E-Thousand Skies. I really enjoyed the cover of this. It's very space themed, but I also enjoy the incorporated profile into the moon. I think it's very well done. It just really caught my attention from the moment I saw it, and even though it wasn't the biggest hit in my books for the actual content of the book, would I recommend this book? Not really, but it does have an amazing cover going on for it. Now, for the best contemporary of 2018, I chose one that I actually read fairly recently. That being said, out of all of the books that I've read, contemporary is a very tiny percentage. I'd say I probably read like 5. I think the best one by far was History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera. This was a book definitely about grief and about a person who is struggling to move on from his ex-boyfriend's death and find solace in a person that he least expected. The book actually jumps from the current timeline to the past or history. As you go through the book, a lot of things are revealed and a lot of things come into place, but I thought it was so brilliantly done in the sense that nothing was black and white. Everything had all the shades, the characters, the development, the feelings. Nothing was as simple and nothing was as final as a lot of the times we see in, especially in YA, and I really appreciated that detailed understanding of how a person can feel and feelings regarding a lot of conflicting things that you go through in life. Even though sometimes it made our main character not particularly likable, I thought it was very well done. Really quite realistic of how life is sometimes. I will say again, it does also deal with mental health and there is representation for homosexuality, so it has a lot of things going on for it. Well, if you're looking for something like that, I will say again, trigger warning for mental health issues and depression and some OCD, mental health basically. If you're struggling with these themes, or if you're struggling with grief and you have lost someone very close to you and you're just not ready to read something like that, please keep that in mind. But otherwise, I would really recommend this one. The next category is best manga or graphic novel or comic. I read quite a few graphic novels, comics and mangas this year, so it was a strong competition in the category, but I will say I didn't read anything that blew my mind entirely. However, the comic that did win was Descender. This was actually recommended to me by you guys, and thank you so much because I am thoroughly enjoying it. I only read volume 1, but I will read volume 2 later this month, hopefully, during the magical readathon. Descender is a sci-fi comic. It's about a world that gets attacked by aliens pretty much, or some mechanical beings, and our main character actually wakes up many years later afterwards because a lot of things just shut down, because our main character was actually a robot or AI himself. So when he wakes up in this random place, he misses his family who were biological beings. He suddenly gets hunted by a lot of different parties, and the parties are hunting the character because apparently his code is very similar to the ones of the mechanical beings that attack the planet. It was actually surprisingly touching. I really enjoyed the story, and our main character also like sort of getting the memories back, like made the flashbacks, and the storytelling and, you know, the background of the story seemed very natural. And it's an odd one because I don't necessarily love the art style, and I am very picky with art style, and it means so much. Obviously it is because that's your main thing, the art style, but the story just pulled through, and I just am really excited about the next one. Okay, the next category was so hard to pick. Fantasy. So the best fantasy I read in 2018, but I made a decision and I am sticking to it, and that was Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. I have finished this quite recently. This is the second and final book to Strange the Dreamer series. What a conclusion. There were some things that I wasn't the biggest fan of, but the main thing that I really appreciate from her writing is her writing, because it's amazing. It's like every second sentence is like a little piece of art. These books are definitely not for everyone because they are so character driven. Plot wise, there's always not as much happening until like the second half of the book or two. But if you like psychology and if you like complex human emotions and motives, this is a masterpiece. And I just fell in love with so many characters. I care deeply about so many secondary characters, which I think always makes a book so much better. Nothing felt shallow. I really enjoyed the motivations and the conclusion to this. And the whole series is about this city that everyone thought was lost, and our main character, Laszlo Strange, was a librarian who spent his life studying the myths about the city, and in a weird turn of events, they actually some people from the said city come over and are looking for people to help out the city, and he gets picked to go with them. And suddenly a person that everyone was sort of making a mockery of for believing in fairy tales is the one that is almost most knowledgeable about the place that they're going to. Our other main characters, this semi-goddess person that actually can invade people's dreams during the night. Their lives just intertwine in a lot of ways, and I really don't feel like I ever give justice when describing these books because, one, I really don't want to tell a lot of things because I don't want to reveal too much, but at the core I feel like the first book was very much about lonely people finding each other, and the second book I felt was about human complexity and how not everything is great. And recovery, grief, and just simply being human, really. Even though a lot of characters are not technically human in here. Laini Taylor very quickly became one of my absolute favorite authors of all time, so I am a person who dislikes poetry with a passion. So lyrical writing to me sometimes, I also cringe very easily to everything, pretty much. So to me, lyrical writing is, when it's a hit, because some of my favorite books are that, but it has to be done very tastefully and very purposefully instead of just being dramatic for the dramatic sakes, because I can't take it seriously. I get really angry. I just don't like it. But this was definitely top-notch writing, and highly recommend if you're looking for something like that. The next category is the best sci-fi of 2018, which is also very hard for me to pick because I have read a lot of sci-fi this year, but after some competing with other series, one really stood out to me, and that is Themis Files. Now I am putting them all together here because I sort of view them as all together, like a one thing, you know, especially when you finish a series, you're like, you just view them together. So the first one is Sleeping Giants, the second one is Waking Gods, and the third one is Only Human. Now, not only are these covers amazing, but the story is told in such an interesting way. It's all through recordings of dialogue, so you get to know the characters in a very unusual way, and I absolutely loved it. I found it very interesting how these books had such strong, fast-paced plot, however did not lose on character development to me. I know some people were not fans of it because of the format, but to me, I thought that Sylvain Noel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm sorry, but I thought that he has managed to not lose this character attachment of ours when writing in this format, and I think it's not an easy thing to manage. One of our main characters as a kid stumbles across this hidden massive metal arm. Now when she grows up, she actually goes on to studying that and then gets involved in a team that are set to study where this massive arm came from. One of the first things that we learn is that this hand is not actually made of material that we are familiar with, and technically it should be dated so far into the past that humanity was not really a thing yet. So we have a lot of questions. I really don't want to tell you what else happens. Things escalate so much in the second one. The plot changes a lot in the second one. But as a person who considers a lot of things spoilers, I don't want to say anything else. I will add, however, that the audiobooks are also really good for this. It's a full cast, so each character has its own voice. I do recommend it. I listened to the first one, but then continued reading hard copies just because I wanted to. And then finally we come to our ultimate award, and that is Best Overall Read of 2018. Now this was damn hard, like so hard, but I ended up going with Strange the Dreamer series. I don't think that you guys are gonna be very surprised by this. I wanted to put them together because similarly to Sleeping Giants or Themis Files, I see these two as one. I think this takes the #1 spot in everything that I read in 2018, and I've also never read as many things as I read in 2018, and I still feel like these are the best things that I had stumbled across this year. And that is everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you found some things to put in your to be read list. Let me know what was your overall best read of 2018. Please only pick one because it has to be strict. So I know it's a hard question, but I challenge you to answer that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys are well. Stay awesome, stay kind, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!